Hello, Stampin' Buddies. It is Sunday. We are looking at October 6th. We're almost a week through October already. Time this year has just flown. I don't know how that happens, but welcome. We're going to make a quick card today using this Caring Leaves stamp set. Very simple. It's a two-step stamping set. Phew, little tongue-tied there. And then I'm going to use this Forever Plaid embossing folder. You can see it's like huge compared to what some of our other embossing folders used to be. And that just either lets you do a couple of layers or a bigger piece. So it'll accommodate, I think, a little bit better for those that want a scrapbook. But I'm going to show you a cute, cool technique with that quick. And what I'm working on is this Caring Leaves set. It's in the catalog for the mini catalog on pages 58 and 59. I'm kind of doing a mix of the sample. That's where I got my inspiration. And I am actually looking at the layouts. We get some basic card designs in the annual catalog. On page 22 down at the bottom, there's actually 22 card layouts. So I am loosely following this one, which is the 5th one. So I'm going to have my base, I'm going to have a couple layers, and I'm going to have a sentiment. And then the colors that I chose, I'm using this Color Theory wheel. Now, when I went to On Stage in March, those of us that attended actually got a handheld wheel, and it's got a dial that spins around so that we could kind of line up the colors we wanted to use. And guess what? Stampin' Up's going to start selling them. So you'll want to keep your eye on that. I'll try to keep you posted though. So what I'm doing here today, the colors that I picked are actually complementary colors on the wheel. So I started with Cajun Craze. That's the color that I like. Autumn. Fall is like my favorite season of the year. And I'm also using Peach Pie. So these are next to each other on the wheel, basically. They're in the same oranges section. And then I went straight across and opted for Misty Moonlight. So those are colors that I would not normally have even considered putting together. The blue and the orange, although my high school colors were blue and orange, just different shades. So maybe they were onto something and I didn't know it. So that's what we're doing. We're using complementary colors. I'm working off of the wheel and the sketch that's provided by Stampin' Up. So let's get to it. I'm going to set this aside. If you want any of the products that you see me demonstrate today and you don't already have a demonstrator, I would love to be the demonstrator that you select. But I'll put some of the details in the description later. I won't have time right away, but I'll try to get it on there quick. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how I created this for my layer here. And basically all I did was open up my embossing folder. You can use daubers, you can use the brayer, the silicone brayer we have, or you can just be lazy and do what I did and just brush your ink pad. This happens to be the Misty Moonlight. Brush your ink pad in there. And then what I did was I set my cardstock, we'll pretend that this isn't embossed already, closed it up there, ran it through my machine, and then this is what I ended up with. So it was just a really random coloring, but I thought it was a cool look. So I will clean that up because I need that in a little while for a meeting that I have. So first things first, we are going to try to do this kind of in a logical order. And I've got my base, which is basically my 11 by 4.5. Score, no, 8.5 by 5.5. Whew, what am I thinking today? And then scored it 4 1/4, so it's in half. It's just a normal base layer. I think I'm making it more difficult than it needs to be. And then I am going to do some stamping here for these leaves, all right? So with the two-step stamping, it's really pretty easy. You just kind of put it on here, and I just kind of randomized them. I stamped off on this one for my first sample, but then I did another one, and I kind of liked it darker too. So I don't know. We'll see. Either way is fine. And then we'll use this one and we'll do a couple leaves on this side. And I just wanted it, I don't need anything in the middle, obviously, because that's going to get covered up. And then this one, you just have to kind of line up the veins. And it's supposed to look kind of abstract, and it's kind of hard to see without putting my head under the camera, but I think we'll be close, pretty darn close. So if I can do it with looking cross-eyed or cockeyed, you guys can do it looking straight on, I'm sure. But if we're off a little bit, no harm done, like that one. That one's off a little bit too, but that's all right. And then we'll do this one. And on the darker paper, it's a little bit more difficult to see, I think, but that looks pretty good. And then we'll do this last one. When I did it on lighter paper, it's just easier to see when you're using the darker inks, but when you're doing the darker ink on the darker paper, it's a little bit more challenging. So I'm happy with that. That'll work. So we'll set that off to the side. The next piece that I'm going to do then is this, my layer here. Now I obviously already ran it through the embossing machine, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my spritzer that I have alcohol in just so it dries a little bit faster, and I'm going to spritz this. I'm just going to go off camera for that for a second. And I'm just using alcohol because it dries a little bit faster, but I wanted to make this look a little leathery looking, or like fabric, kind of like, you know, flannel shirt maybe. So just however you get it done, and the alcohol dries pretty quickly, so we're going to be able to attach this relatively quickly. It's not like we're soaking it with water, where it would take a long time to dry in order for the adhesive, whatever adhesive you prefer, to take. So again, I'm just gonna bunch this up a lot because that's the look I wanted. I thought it looked kind of cool. And that way, if there's some imperfections, you know, who's gonna know? Who's gonna know? So the other thing I did with this, and you'll see it on one other piece too, is I'm gonna take my snips and just the side, and I'm gonna rough up some of these edges so that they're a little more rustic looking. And like here where it's separated, quite honestly, I don't really care because that's the look that I'm going for. And when we attach it down to our card, it's not gonna be really weird looking. It's gonna look rustic, which is exactly what I wanted. Now you could do this before you wrinkled it, but then I think you lose some of the frayed part on here. So I think that's pretty darn good. And then what I found worked best for me, I'm gonna get this out of the way. What worked best for me was just putting tear and tape on here, because then I'm sure it's gonna stick really good. Tear and tape is a pretty strong adhesive. Not that it's like gonna get a lot of wear and tear, obviously, but because it's so textured, I want something that's pretty strong. Normally I would use my liquid glue, but for purposes of this video, I thought, the tear and tape works really well. All right, so we can set that aside. And I like to usually just burnish it down a little bit on my paper too, so it doesn't separate. It makes those release papers a little easier for me to pick off of there. And I'm just gonna snip this because I had a wrinkle so that it'll lay flat. All right, and then we'll start peeling some of these puppies off. So really, when you've got all your stuff prepped, putting the card together goes pretty quick. Whatever things you can do ahead of time. And if you're gonna mass produce, you know, you get your little assembly line going and you can get a whole bunch of cards done lickety-split. All right. And this one doesn't matter really if it's right side up or upside down. It doesn't really matter. You just kind of want it so that it's centered on your card, because this is 3 inches by 5.5 inches. So it goes the whole height of the card, all right? And then I just have this piece here just to kind of soften up all that design and color, all right? So we are going to take a couple of these leaves as well. These are pretty cool. They're like a mesh. They're almost like a wire mesh. They kind of bend. And these are the woven golden leaves. So I'm just going to kind of, I guess I need my tear and tape again. I'm going to put a little piece here and a little piece here. And again, burnish that on so it's easier for me to get the release paper off. And so it adheres pretty well. And I am going to use this to pick up my leaves. And it doesn't have to be rocket science, all right? So then we're going to, oh, I don't have my chamois to wash these little guys off. I will be right back here. I thought I was forgetting something, but I couldn't remember what it was. But that's the joy of having water, running water in my studio space. So I can wipe things off really easy. So now we're going to do the pieces that are in our peach pie. Oh, I'm sorry, Cajun Craze. That was the other color that I'm using. All right, so let those dry for a second. We're gonna do the sentiment in the Misty Moonlight. And then we're going to do some leaves here in the Cajun Craze. So I'm gonna do for the inside of my card. Or did I do that backwards? This is my scrap. And this is for the inside of the card. So I guess we'll use the other side of the paper. That's why there's 2 sides of the paper, just in case I mess up. Best laid plans, right? All right, and then we're gonna take our little lineys, or our veins rather, put those on there. And then you can too dress up your envelope. So I would just probably put a couple leaves on it. And again, I'm just roughing up the edges just because it kind of takes that starkness off of just a straight edge. This is a more rustic, fall-like looking card, and I just want to stick with the theme here. All right. So we'll get that tear and tape here again. And again, normally I would use my green glue, but the tear and tape is pretty quick and easy. And then I'm not going to end up with glue on my fingers while I'm trying to touch other pieces of paper here. And you can snip that. A lot of people use their snips to cut off the edges. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends on what I'm working on. But we'll get this put on the inside of a card, and then we will do our leaves for the focal point for the front. And yes, we're gonna fussy cut just a little. Now, if you know me, you know I'm really not much of a fan of fussy cutting. But it is what it is, because this stamp set has no dies. So there's the inside. There's a little smudge on there, but oops, and it's a little crooked. It's actually kind of a lot crooked. That's what happens when I try to hurry. Well, you get the idea. I will fix that later, all right? So then we are going to re-stamp the sentiment because I'm gonna need that. And then we're gonna do the leaves again. And these are the ones that I'm going to fussy cut for the front. And if they're a little off so that they're more abstract looking, that's exactly how this is designed to be. So don't worry about having it be perfect, because that's really not the idea of this one. All right. So I'm going to close up these inks now so that I don't have any other accidents, like I just put my finger in the blue. That misty one right now is all over my fingers. We'll get these wiped off. And the chamois for this glass mat is so awesome. I mean, it gets nice and flexible right away when you get it a little wet. So we'll just get these little gems out of our way. So many things, right? And then that embossing folder, it just rinses clean. So that's really easy to work with. All right, so here I'm just going to start cutting these things out. So I just need straight cuts basically for all my words. Just because I think it gives it a more casual look. So it's going to go your, I guess I should trim that maybe a little bit straighter. Your Simply. So Simply, it's really close to the next line. Your Simply. And you know, they don't have to be rectangles, but that's how my first one turned out. Pretty nice rectangles. So you're simply the best. And then the other stamp, the other sentiment that's in the stamp set just says, some things never change. So you could actually, you know, put you're simply the best on the front, and on the inside, some things never change, or vice versa. I just left the inside blank. And then these we'll just fussy cut quick. We'll see how fast I can do it. And like I said, I am not really a fan of fussy cutting, but some of these easier shapes, just, they're not a big deal. So I can manage, usually. So, World Card Making Day was yesterday. It was an hour that Stampin' Up! Did a virtual event. It was free. And they showcased some of the mix and match products that are in the annual catalog, but there's also some in the mini catalog. So there's that. How are we doing on time? We're about 18 minutes. We'll see if I can finish this in about 2 minutes, huh? Maybe, maybe not. You'll get the idea, though. That one got a little closer to the edge than I intended, but it is what it is. So I think I'll stop at this one, because you get the idea. You don't need to really see me fussy cut all of these. So then, you know, this last one would go here. Maybe I will just cut it out, right? So you get the full view. And then I just put the leaves up on dimensionals. I used mini dimensionals for my sentiment words and spaced those out randomly, so it just looks really casual. And I think with the colors and the rusticness of this, it's just a really cool card. So there's nothing wrong with getting your inspiration from the catalog. There's nothing wrong with copying stuff out of the catalog, or when you see demonstrators put stuff out there, they're basically doing it to give you the ideas. There's nothing that says that you can't copy and share everything, which is what we call CASE for CASE, copy and share everything, or copy and slightly edit. So it's all about just getting your fingers a little inky and maybe a little glue on them. But here's my cards. So I'll get rid of these pieces of garbage. So pretty quick. Once you get all your stuff together, it only really takes a couple minutes to put together. And there's my card. So let me know what you think. If you want any of the products that are featured in this card, let me know if you need the numbers. I'll try to, again, like I said, post those later. And enjoy the rest of your day. Happy stamping.